Already getting nervous because you couldn't hear me? Don't worry, the audio functions. I just tried to create a small disturbance, something that makes you stumble for a moment. Why? To illustrate you how I look at processes of social learning and change. I will come back to this in a minute. But first of all, hi, my name is Anna Baatz. I recently defended my PhD, and my PhD looks at learning processes and practice change in the context of sustainability transitions. Different efforts are undertaken to induce more sustainable practices, structures, and cultures. One example are urban experiments. They are conducted to trigger learning processes that then hopefully will lead to practice change. However, and this is my starting point, we need to investigate if that holds true, or more precisely, how does learning come about in urban experiments? What is learned, and does this learning then really induce practice change? The conceptual basis for my PhD is transactional theory of learning, based on Dewey's pragmatism and developed by Katrin van Puck and Leif Östman. The theory directs the view to habits, to ways of thinking, feeling, acting, coordinating with the world around us. Sometimes habits are disturbed. Disturbances are situations in which, habits are interrupted and actors experience something unexpected. So coming back to the start of the video, seeing me talk but not hearing me might have interrupted your YouTube watching habit. You might have nervously checked your audio settings based on experience with audio problems and other digital activities. In my PhD, I identify several of these disturbances that I understand as a kind of initial moment of potential learning and change. One of the case studies of my PhD is an urban experiment that redesigned a schoolyard ecologically and under participation of the pupils. One disturbance of that my co-author Franziska Ehnert and I identified was a pupil encountering a novel information. So the pupil said in the beginning that he found earthworms disgusting. And then during an activity in the schoolyard, he learned that earthworms have an important function in the soil. They loosen it up. And he learned something in the sense of acquiring new knowledge. Another learning situation refers to the relations between a teacher and her pupils. She experienced some of them as rather jittery in the classroom. And then during the participatory process in which the children were involved in the decisions and also conducted some very practical work, she saw them with different eyes. She experienced how they collaborated very concentrated. I tried to show you this picture. Um, so here the learning refers rather to the relation between the teacher and her pupils. Sometimes the learning we observe did induce practice change, but in most of the instances, we could not observe subsequent changes in practices. And this was the starting point for Article 2, focusing on the dynamics of learning and practice change. It's a conceptual article based on transactional theory of learning again, and it is complemented with insights from practice theory. The article deals with inquiries. So after experiencing a disturbance, an actor might go into an inquiry, a process of trying to better understand why the habits were disturbed and trying to find a way to deal with this. And the theoretical argument I'm making is that even if an actor wishes to change a habit and a practice, that is not necessarily possible always. And this is, for one reason, for the entanglement of practices. So we have this example in the article of mobility habits. And the family says, we really think it would be good to use the car less and maybe even sell the car. However, then they consider how that could work and they refer to several habits related to this mobility habits, such as transportation needs or security concerns with regard to the children. So in the end, they decide not to change the mobility habit. And there are several other arguments why it can be complicated to change practices. The third article of my PhD focuses on the role of materiality for learning and practice change, considers infrastructures, but also spatial narratives and regulations. And yeah, I will just leave it with that to use the final seconds of, yeah, probably already over 5 minute video to summarize what my PhD contributes to the ESC field. So my PhD shows how learning in real world context can be investigated by identifying disturbances, tracing inquiries, and learning processes. These learning processes can be related to knowledge acquisition, value change, but also changes in relations. This includes relations between persons, but also relations between persons and socio-material environments. It further elucidates the relation of learning and practices and explains why sometimes even though actors wish to change a habit, they might not do so because, for example, the entanglement of practices. So now I'm showing you the last slide with the title and the information on my PhD. Thanks for staying with me until here, and feel free to reach out if you're interested in learning practice dynamics.